What is going on, ODSTs? It's me, Perplexality here, going to bring you another Art of War video. We're already on Chapter 10, and this chapter is entitled Terrain. And before we get into it, I just wanted to say, this gameplay is given to me by HOW Genju. This is a scrimmage he played. He's actually a clan member. He's with me in the clan. And this is actually a scrimmage he played. I'm not in this game, unfortunately, but still, it's a really good gameplay. So thank him for giving us the footage that we're going to go ahead and record over. Now, we're going to talk about terrain, and we're going to get the first section and the last section of this, and we'll go ahead and kind of talk about it. So he says, Sun Tzu said, "We may distinguish 6 kinds of terrain, to wit, accessible ground, entangling ground, temporizing ground, narrow passages, precipitous heights, and positions at a great distance from the enemy." And we're going to go through each of these. Ground which may be freely traversed by both sides is called accessible. These are positions that both people can get to relatively easy. Like the mid of this map on a drift is pretty easy for both sides to get into. There's 6 main entrances, or really 8, but 2 of them are pretty low and it's hard to get up. So those are areas that both people can get at pretty easily. He says, with regard to ground of this nature, be before the enemy in occupying the raised and sunny spots, and carefully guard your line of supplies, then you will be able to fight with advantage. So he says that when you get in this area, you want to make sure you get here first if both people can get in it easily, and you want to go ahead and set up on the advantage places. Like when you're going in here, you definitely want to set up with grabbing overshield at first, because that will give you an advantage for the fight that's going to come, or set up an attic where it's a high and raised up area. He says, ground which can be abandoned but is hard to reoccupy is called entangling. From a position of this sort, if the enemy is unprepared, you may sally forth and defeat him. But if the enemy be prepared for your coming, and you fail to defeat him, then return must be impossible. Disaster will ensue. So basically, if it's a position that's really hard to capture, and it's really easy to defend, then the only real way to get this position is to go ahead and lure them off and catch them unaware. So when you are planning on attacking very difficult to gather positions, you have to come from an angle that's unexpected and get them unaware. And if you fail to get it then there's no hope of you actually getting this position. So you definitely want to make sure that when you're doing it, you're doing it as slyly as possible and doing it as almost a surprise attack. He says, next it says, when a position is such that neither side will gain by making the first move, this is called temporizing ground. This is ground that's bad for people to have. These are the low grounds of the map, such as Courtyard on a drift, or you can see here, or on Ragnarok, if you want to hold that little area in front of the base, that'll help you. That'll actually help you pull the flag, but it's going to be bad to get in there because you can get killed easily from that section of the map. So this is ground that's bad for both of you to be in. So the first person to move out into this ground is going to lose. And he goes on to say, in a position of this sort, even though the enemy should offer us an attractive bait, it would be advisable not to stir forth, but rather to retreat, thus enticing the enemy to his turn. Then, when part of his army has come out, we may deliver an attack with advantage. So basically saying that when people have these, have these positions out, they're usually going to try and bait you out with something. You need to ignore those baits and instead bait him out yourself, either by retreating or baiting him with something else. And basically you want to get him to step on the ground first, then you're going to go ahead and deliver your attack. And that's what's going to be advantageous to you. So making people go around corners, for example, where you're prepared with some kind of weapon, you have to lure them out and make them have to come over to you because you'll have the advantage. He says, with regard to narrow passages, if you can occupy them first, let them be strongly garrisoned and await the advent of the enemy. Should the army forestall you in occupying a pass, do not go after him in the pass if the pass is fully garrisoned, but only if it is weakly garrisoned. So basically he's saying there are a bunch of narrow alleyways that work as choke points in a lot of maps, you know, corners and doorways and stuff like that. If you can occupy these positions first, you can kind of force the enemy to go into these small areas, kind of like nade pockets where you can grenade it very easily and stuff like that. So if you have these positions, you want to go ahead and get set up there first. If he's set up there, then you don't want to go in there because he'll be strongly set up. You only want to chase people through these passages if he doesn't have anything set up for you. But if there's an area that is strongly defended, then don't chase people through these areas. He says, with regard to precipitous heights, if you are beforehand of your adversary, you should occupy the raised and sunny spots, and there wait for him to come up. If the enemy has occupied them before you, do not follow him, but retreat and try to entice him away. These are basically just high grounds on maps, the things like Attic on this map in Adrift. It's a good place to overlook the fight and get a height advantage on your enemy, because height has a big advantage on individual battles and skirmishes. So basically he's saying that if you have this, you want to go ahead and set up quickly and get ready for the enemy to come around. Like he was ready for that person to pop around the corner, and he was already prepared right there where you saw he got the sniper kill. That's the positions that you want to go ahead and hold. And when people have the high ground, you want to entice them away. You want to go ahead and gather the position and lure them out of it, because that's what's going to allow you to get an even fight with them, because they have the advantage if they have the high ground. You're trying to make it a more even fight. So you can see he's not going to push right here. He just managed to get the guy to lure out of the corner right where you saw in that game. We're actually going to skip line 12 and we're going to go to 13. It says, these 6 are the principles connected with Earth. General who has attained a responsible post must be careful to study them. So he's basically saying that if you have some sort of beneficial position where you're looking at pulling onto a fight, you need to pay attention to these 6 main types of ground that I've just described, and that'll be key to determining how you have to start off an engagement, and a fight, if you will, and start off fighting someone, because that'll mean the difference between how the win goes, if you have the advantage or if they do. We're actually going to skip to line 23 here, and I'm scrolling, and he says, if fighting is sure to result in victory, then you must fight, even though the ruler forbid it. If the fighting will not result in victory, then you must not fight, even at the ruler's bidding. So basically he's saying there's a lot of times where people will tell you they know best, and they're going to tell you that they know how you should be fighting. Well, if it's going to result in a victory, and they tell you not to do it, then you still have to do it, because that's going to be how you're going to win. And if they tell you to do something, and you don't do it, because you know you're going to lose if you do it, then it's still something that you have to do. You have to ignore them. There's one guy in my clan that he just tells me what to do all the time. Even though a lot of times I'll be doing better than him in games, and sometimes he'll be doing better than me. Like he's a very good player, but he tells me a lot of what to do a lot of the time. And the problem with that is that he's really not helping the team win. So I need to be focused on ignoring what he says sometimes and focus on the team wins, because a lot of the times what he does will not be advantageous to us for the win. So I have to be focusing on winning the game. So situations like that is what you really need to be careful of. And we're going to look at these last few lines. I'm just going to read the last 4 lines in order right here. It says, if we know that our own men are in a condition to attack, but are unaware that the enemy is not open to attack, then we have gone only halfway towards victory. If we know that the enemy is open to attack, but are unaware that our own men are not in a condition to attack, we have gone only halfway to victory. If we know that the enemy is open to attack, and we also know that our men are in a condition to attack, but we are unaware that the nature of the ground makes fighting impractical, we have still only gone halfway towards victory. So he's saying, basically, we can know that we have a bunch of men alive to fight someone. We can know that a lot of people at the other team has a bunch of guys dead, so we are able to engage them, and we can know, and we need to know the position. And we need to know all these things to be able to successfully fight someone. We need to know the layout of the ground and the condition of both our troops. And he says, hence, the experienced soldier, once in motion, is never bewildered. Once he has broken camp, he is never at a loss. So he's basically saying that people who know how to fight well, they know all the conditions that go on around them, and they know exactly what they're doing. And then he also goes on to say, hence the saying, if you know the enemy and know yourself, your victory will not stand in doubt. If you know heaven and know earth, you may make your victory complete. So basically he's saying, if you know all the conditions that are out in the battlefield, if you know who's ready for an engagement, if you know where the enemy is, where your teammates are, and what kind of positions you guys hold, then you will be able to make educated decisions on how to win a fight. And that's how you win, by being educated in how the fight's going. If you aren't educated in your teammates' abilities to do something, if you aren't educated in your own team's abilities to do something, and you aren't educated in the actual position that you guys hold, then you'll be unable to lose, or unable to win fights, and it's going to cause you to lose. You're only going to win half the time. So it's very important to pay attention to these 3 things, and again, those 6 pieces of land are big things to study, and knowing those on top of the position of all your teams and all that's what's going to lead you to victory. And that's what this whole chapter has been around, focusing on knowing how to control those certain terrains and knowing the state of your team and the enemy team. And that's pretty much been it for Chapter 10, Terrain, for The Art of War. I'm Perplexality. I would like to thank you guys for watching. Please remember to comment, rate, and subscribe. We only have 3 more chapters after this, so I hope you guys will stick around and be ready for the full book of The Art of War. But again, thank you for watching. ODST, out.